Please rise with me for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll call this meeting to order, and my first announcement to you is we are welcoming Anthony DeSisto Law Associates. Tony DeSisto, the principal, and Mark Hartman, one of the associates in it, are with us this evening. We are grateful for their willingness to serve the community. Let me take a moment also, whenever there is an incoming person, there is somebody who is leaving. In this case, with that welcome comes a farewell. That farewell is for Richard Humphrey. For more than 3 decades, he has been the town solicitor of Little Compton. He is quite literally the only solicitor with which I have served in 18 years. As a matter of fact, that statement is true of every single member of this council. None of us has served with any other solicitor in our capacity as counselors. As a matter of fact, I am deeply grateful for his advice and his counsel throughout our tenure together. His wealth of knowledge about this town, its history, and the attitudes of its citizens has been invaluable to those of us who have been charged with responsibility for representing the town. To Dick Humphrey, tonight I say, on behalf of the town council and the town, thank you. The next item of business is to entertain a motion from Councilor Mataronis, who wishes to move an item to the head of the agenda.
I'd like to move new business to a resolution in opposition to offshore wind turbines sited off Little Compton. This was given to me by Mara Shore. She had some concerns. She wanted me to put on the agenda, which I did, so I would ask her to speak on it. And if anybody else would like to speak on it, that would be fine.
I'll second.
If I may have, the motion is made and seconded to bring this matter to the head of the agenda. Is there any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Solicitor, you have a,
Mr. President,
No,
just one
they've
moment,
got.
please, just one second.
out of an abundance of caution, based on the fact that I also represent the Coastal Resources Management Council, we're going to recuse for this resolution. I don't think you need any legal advice on this anyway.
We do not.
But out of an abundance of caution, until I get an opinion from the Ethics Commission as to whether I can advise you on these matters, I'm going to recuse. Thank you.
Let the minutes so reflect that the solicitor recuses from this matter. Sorry, yes, ma'am.
You want to read it? Do you want to read it?
I'm happy to read it, sure.
Okay, why don't you read it and
Okay, and you all have copies of it.
We do.
All right. I have not done this before, so I don't need to worry about those guys. I'm only addressing you guys, right?
We worry about them greatly, but I don't want
All right, I'm
to.
not going to worry.
That's right.
we don't worry about them. We don't sit up here.
It depends what they're armed with.
Please go ahead.
So would you like me to read the resolution? Is that
Yeah, go
helpful?
ahead.
Okay. So whereas the Little Compton Town Council supports the development of clean, renewable energy, including solar power, waste to energy, and geothermal. And whereas the Town Council recognizes the need for renewable energy infrastructure, including wind power, and has demonstrated support for clean energy through the implementation of initiatives, including the installation of solar panels on municipal buildings. And whereas the Town Council has the duty to protect and promote the physical, economic, mental, and emotional well-being of town residents, and to protect and promote the livelihoods of those who work on and off our shores. And whereas the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management is considering applications from private energy companies to construct offshore wind facilities in a vital marine habitat beginning 12.9 miles off the coast of Little Compton, which will include, at the nearest to us, over 100 wind turbines, each nearly 900 feet tall, constructed on 30 to 40 foot diameter piles driven deep into the ocean floor. And whereas the construction and operation of the offshore wind facilities will hinder marine navigation, disturb fish stocks and fishermen, marine environments and habitats, pelagics, groundfish, shellfish, and marine animals, commercial and recreational boaters, and the myriad values provided by the ocean. Whereas the town council believes that the construction and operation of the proposed wind facilities represent a significant threat to the livelihoods and welfare of the citizens, property owners, and visitors of Little Compton. Now therefore, be it resolved that the town council is opposed to the construction and operation of offshore wind facilities, including the projects surrounding Cox's Ledge, Revolution Wind, South Coast Wind, South Fork Wind, and Sunrise Wind, in the proposed location, a vital marine habitat near the coast of Little Compton. Be it further resolved that a copy of the resolution shall be sent to the governor of the state of Rhode Island and to our congressional representatives, resolved and effective this 6th day of April. So there you have it.
Thank you.
Would you like me to say a few things? Would you like me to answer your questions?
I'd like you to make some statement concerning, are you the nominal author of this resolution?
I am.
And perhaps we could hear that, and then I would be interested in comments from the council, and then interested in comments from the public.
Okay.
And we can coordinate that. So if you could
Great.
give us your sense of what it is that,
What I'm doing here? I'll try. So my name is Mara Shore. I think most of you know me. I know most of you. I have been a member of this community since birth. My parents live here. They're in the audience right there. And I have aunts and uncles and cousins all over this place. And as anybody who knows me knows, I'm a water person. If I'm awake, I'm usually on or near the water. And I grew up sailing and boating on the waters around here. And I've spent most of my adult life, the past 25 years anyway, being involved in some way or another with the Secana Yacht Club. I've held most of the positions there. And among other things, I've been responsible for the safety and sailing education of literally thousands of kids. And I spend a lot of time thinking about risk on the water. And I am now, and have been for the last several years, the chief safety officer at the Secana Yacht Club. I drafted with our harbor master, Mike Massa, who's here, about 10 years ago, our hurricane preparedness plan. And at the Yacht Club, we spend a lot of time thinking about risks to our children and our adults and our infrastructure from the water. And when I heard about this, which was for the first time this past fall, I kind of couldn't believe my ears. I thought, this can't be right. What I heard was a private energy company, foreign-owned energy company, several of them, ex and offshoots of oil companies, were planning to build essentially a city of wind turbines 12 miles off our shores. And I thought, if they were going to build a city at Stonebridge, which is 12 miles north of here, we'd have meetings like this every single day. People would be asking all kinds of questions and jumping up and down. But what they're proposing to do is build a city of skyscrapers, 1,000 feet tall, over 14,000 square miles, 1.5 times the state of Rhode Island in size. And they're giving us almost no information about risks. And the risks are going to be borne by our community. So when I look at the plans, and now I've spent a lot of time, when I first heard about it, I thought, that can't be right. There's got to be something. I got to be missing something. That doesn't make sense. And so I started reading and reading and reading, and now I've read a lot. And mostly what I've read is that there are a lot of things we don't have answers to, and they want to push it through without the answers. And what I know is, when I look at the construction of these things, it is hundreds of heavy ships, diesel powered, coming from ports in Providence and Quonset and other places, transporting steel and fiberglass resin blades and 30 to 40 foot monopiles that are going to be buried deep into the seabed. And these ships are going to be going back and forth all over the place. And the area that these turbines will be sited in will be off limits to everybody during the construction phase, so how long will that take? And all our fishermen are gonna have to go around these areas of construction. Anybody who wants to get, for instance, the canyon's gonna have to go around. There's the collateral damage seems to me to be enormous. Once the turbines are in, even if they get in some reasonable way without too much craziness, then we've got 2,000 of these 1,000-foot tall structures, each of which has hundreds of gallons of oil to keep lubricated. That oil has to be changed. There's hundreds of thousands of gallons of oil in these things. And there will be infrastructure, people all the time moving back and forth to service these things. If one breaks, they have no plans to fix them. They have no ways to fix them. And what we've been told is the information about what happens in a hurricane, what happens if there's an oil spill, what happens if something breaks is all classified. The draft environmental impact statements, not just for the one that's nearest to us, which is Revolution Wind, but the draft environmental impact statements for all of the ones that are listed in this resolution have classified all of the risk management important stuff. They're all buried in these appendices. These things are 800 and 900 pages long. The one for Revolution Wind has no table of contents and no index. And when you go to finally find this appendices, you find that it's hidden from view. To me, like, I can't think of anything more important. What's gonna happen? We are downstream and downwind of these things. What's gonna happen when a blade twings off? What's gonna happen when there's an oil spill? That is coming to us. So I feel like we need to know. All I see is risk. When I look at this plan, all I see is risk. And I see private, foreign-owned, giant multinational companies taking advantage of federal subsidies that are, I am sure, incredibly well-intentioned, and externalizing the real cost of these incredibly gigantic industrial complexes, and no plan whatsoever for what to do once they get there. Their brief is 2 years. It is construction and installation, operation for 2 years. And then they're out, and we are going to be left with these things, whether they work or not. At best, at the end of they have a give or take, 25-year lifespan. At best, if they all work perfectly and no hurricane wipes them out, and they do what they're meant to do, there is no plan for the removal of them, at best. And there is no way to recycle these blades, which are as big as a football field, each blade. At best, we are going to be left with a graveyard of skyscrapers for the rest of time. There is no plan to take them out. Not only is there no money to take them out, but the damage that would be caused to the marine environment for taking them out will be very similar to what the damage will be caused by putting them in. So those of us who care about the fish and mammals and all the marine life that's in there, might want to look at them for the rest of the time, but we're not going to want to go back in and pull them out again. So to me, unless we had answers to our questions that are much, 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 much more evolved than what they're now telling us, this seems like an absolute lose-lose proposition for our town.
Thank you. Good job.
Thanks.
Oh, I have some pictures. Should I show you pictures?
Put in the record the one.
You guys want to see pictures? These are BOEM, Bureau of Ocean Energy Management's own, these are their own images. I just blew them up. Yeah, that's from Nantucket, so that's actually 17 miles away. So it'll be bigger for us.
Show one to the audience so they'll know what's going on.
Here's one. This is a simulation from Newport. This is a simulation, from Nantucket. And again, that's at 17 miles away and 90% humidity. Humidity makes them blurry, as we all know. So they're going to be bigger, taller to us, and more in our faces. And
lit at night.
Yeah, and lit at night, by the way. They have red lights on top so airplanes don't hit them. So that'll be fun. So here's another one, another beach shot. Sorry, beach shot. And then this is helpful to me, so I'll share this with you. I think you guys already know this. I know Gary does, but this is helpful to me for context. So here's the state of Rhode Island, right? State of Rhode Island right here. Can you see the outline? This is the wind farm. It's huge. It's gigantic. If they came to us and said, that those 5 wind turbines off Block Island didn't seem to do that much damage, I don't know, many of you may have been, as I was at that thing last Monday, and that guy got up and said, I'm a charter captain, and my business hasn't really fallen off, right? That thing. There are 5 of them. I've been out there a million times. I'm married to a recreational fisherman. He's on his boat 100 days a year, but we'll call it recreation. And I've been out there, I don't know, 100 times. Usually, at least 2 of them are not spinning. But whatever. If they wanted to put 20 of those out in our waters and say, let's just see how 20 goes, I would say, that seems kind of reasonable. Let's see how 25 were okay. Let's see how 20 go. They're talking about 2,000, a mile apart and 1,000 feet tall. The ones off Block Island, by the way, are 600 feet tall. These are almost twice as tall as the ones off Block Island. So there you go. That's Rhode Island, and that's the wind farm area. And I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Would anybody else like to speak on it?
Somebody back.
I'm Peter Lozier. Yes, indeed, I am Mars cheerleader. But anyway, there are 2 things that struck me about this. So we don't know what all the information is. We're being asked to partner with a partner that's not showing us all of those information. I think that's really dumb. I think my grandkids, one of whom is here tonight, she'll know, but the rest of them will also know that we really have no benefits. I mean, all this risk of things, no benefits to Rhode Island, any part of it. There's some jobs identified as 50 permanent jobs, which is crazy. The whole thing is, what will my grandkids say? What will they ask me? What are you guys thinking? What's behind it? But what benefits in these documents? There's no list and stuff that I've seen that they prepare. They don't even try to identify some benefits, but there really are none, which is crazy. Anyway, I'm going to sit down. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Dave.
David Osborne, 71 Point Road. I just want to echo everything that Mara said. I just want to draw an analogy because I think it really appeals to me. This is essentially a fishing and a farming community, little continent that has been for hundreds of years. None of us would ever accept putting a power plant in the middle of our most fertile soil. Take that same analogy and say we're going to put a power plant in the middle of our fishery. Every fisherman would be concerned about it. That's essentially what's happening here. And even if it's successfully put in place, it's very doubtful that it's going to contribute materially to the fight against climate change. Everyone in this room, I'm sure, wants to fight climate change. This is a rush effort without adequate information. We've been forced to assess the likely damage very quickly. We haven't been given adequate access to information, and we've actually been prevented from getting that information, as Maura insinuated, with respect to confidential appendices on all of the environmental impact statements that have been produced. So I think it's incumbent upon this community to make a statement that we really care about what's happening right off the water shores, why we're all in favor of fighting climate change. We don't want to rush, make a stupid decision, do something that will damage this community for 100 years.
Thank you.
Go ahead, over there.
Anybody else?
Oh, the guy with the red jacket, he had his hand up before.
Good evening. My name is Eric Philippi. I live on Warren Point Road. I've lived there almost 80 years. And I'm concerned about the lack of information, communication with the people who are making decisions that are going to have a profound effect on our lives. I've spent a fair amount of time on Cox's Ledge. I was a commercial fisherman, sword fisherman from time to time. All of us are being asked to make an uninformed decision without sufficient factual information.
No one goes out in the fog without a compass. At this point, we are asked to go out into the fog with insufficient navigational aids. Whatever decision we make, we should make that decision informed. At this point, it's too foggy to go out without a compass. We need more factual information. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Larry.
My name's Larry Anderson. My question for the council is whether you adopt this resolution or not, what is your understanding of the current role of the town, the situation of the town with regard to getting more information, intervening in any way? I know that you had a lawyer at one point. So whether you pass this resolution or not going forward, I guess it's likely that our resolution alone wouldn't stop it. So what other ability would the council have to learn more along the way?
I might be able to help with that if you want.
I think there's a lot of coastal communities that feel the same way, that they don't have enough information for this. Obviously, water, the ocean's a pristine area. What's going to happen with these? I got a little speech I'm going to read before I make a motion to adopt this. So you want to go ahead, Patrick?
Well, I was just going to say, you mentioned the lawyer. You know, when this came to our attention months ago, we hired a lawyer, environmental lawyer, Mrs. DeSalle, and we have a seat at the table. We are a limited intervening status with Middletown. And in all the meetings I've been in, whether they've been executive or not, or all the talks that I have with lawyers, is that what we're trying to do here is let the siting board know that, you know, we care about everything you just said. You know, you're right about two things, Mark. They don't have all the answers yet, and they do want to push it through. Okay, so we know that, and we're trying to mitigate the impact here in Little Compton. So we've got an environmental lawyer. We already have intervening status, limited intervening status. But, you know, I want to be truthful with people, and it's my own sense that, you know, we're just waving, you know, on a train track, and the train's coming. So what we've done from the beginning, and we've been in it from the beginning, is letting the state know and letting Mayflower know that we want a seat at this table. We want to know when the barges are coming. We want to make our, you know, about our fishermen and about our fish. And we've already made a resolution. We don't want cables coming up Secana. We don't want to go through Westport and do it on the land. So we're doing everything. I feel that this council's doing everything they can right from the beginning with this. You know, where it stands right now is Mayflower's changed their name to South Coast, and they've asked for they've asked to suspend their request over at CRMC twice. And you know, CRMC said, like, why should we entertain your application if you keep suspending it? Because they've got, seems like they have money problems, and they're complaining about things are more expensive now and things like that. So the CRMC asked them to jump through 20 hoops and get advisory opinions from all these groups. And from my understanding, that hasn't gone anywhere yet. And we're just in a waiting period right now. So CRMC is waiting for Mayflower or South Coast to come to the plate again and say, do you have our answers? So everything is on hold right now. So I just wanted to add that. That's all I have to say on it.
Does anybody else like to speak?
Yeah, I would. I'm the fisherman here. I don't think I'm out there
I don't know
100
if you're
days.
the fisherman. Yeah, I see one or two.
No, I mean,
No, I
I'm
don't think you're the fisherman in this room.
and I'm
I see a
sure
lot
I'm
of good.
out there 100 days. I'm for sure. Look, I understand the train issue, right? The problem is a little bit that the question is what's driving the train, and what all those wind companies want to say is what's driving the train is global warming, climate change, pushing forward an agenda to make the world a safer place for everybody, when in fact, there's clearly money behind it. There's no question there are federal subsidies pushing this through. I just want to be part of the record so you all know this when people are coming saying this is about global warming and we all need to do our part, and Little Compton, you're being asked to do your part. The Bureau of Energy, Ocean Energy Management did a study of Vineyard Wind, and this was their conclusion that I'd like to put in the record. And this is the very last part of their conclusion in their study. Overall, it is anticipated that there would be no collective impact on global warming as a result of offshore wind projects, including the proposed action alone, though they may beneficially contribute to a broader combination of actions to reduce future impacts from climate change. So if the government entity that is sponsoring the wind farms is not convinced that this is going to do a whit of change for global warming and climate change in the near term, then this is about money. This is about people who are looking to get to their dollar by exploiting, as Oz said, our oceans the way that we would never tolerate them exploiting our farms.
Let me make a comment before you read,
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
but unless anybody else.
Anybody else want to make a comment? Go ahead.
Hi, Charlotte Duhamel. I don't know if there's much more I can add, but there were just two things that concern me about what I've read about this project. And as, you know, environmentalist, if this thing were the greatest promise, if it was what it was supposed to be, it was the answer to all our problems, I'd look at it differently. But the two things that bothered me were, one, some of the environmental impact statements and data that agencies were using to assess this was being provided by the offshore wind companies. That made me a little suspect. And then the other was hearing about these good neighbor agreements with some other coastal towns where I don't know the terms of what the neighborhoods receive, the communities receive, but after they sign these agreements, they're no longer allowed to talk about it. They can't raise any sort of protest to it. And it sounds to me like hush money. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
You
I'm
want
sorry.
to talk, Steve?
I just wanted to add one more negative to this that wasn't covered, that a lot of people might not be aware of. For about the past 3 years, they've been doing mapping the ocean bottom and a tight grid, and we've seen a lot of negative effects from that. We can't put our, say as an example, our sea bass pots, when they're running their grid, 3 to 5 mile radius, there are no fish. And what we suspect, or what we're afraid of, is not only are they chasing the fish away, but we think that this high-powered sonar that they're using to go into the surface of the earth, maybe even killing things, various things, marine mammals, fish, and so on. So that's something that we've observed that I think, you know, your layperson, your average person may not even be aware of.
Thank you.
That's all I wanted to say.
and that's a good, well, we got some more going.
So, I mean,
Kevin?
I've been fishing a little while out of Sedona. I'm 40 years old. I've been fishing for 32 years of it. So this will definitely make a small fishing village a lot smaller. I mean, as Steve said, that seismic testing, the sonar testing is doing damage out there. Nobody can see that, you know what I mean? But we do see it firsthand. So, I mean, from our standpoint, it's you know, a little bit different than everybody else's, but I mean, they don't have enough information on this. It's killing whales in New Jersey. It has been for a while. There's all kinds of stuff washing up. I mean, you can see it, you can do your research.
29 so far this year.
Yeah, it's not you know, this is not a normal thing. It's abnormal. There's no doubt about it. You know what I mean? So the more they do like this, it's gonna kill that. It's gonna kill people. I mean, you go through a windmill farm like that, the whole radar just lights up. I mean, when you hit rain, the whole radar is totally green. So you can't see anything. I mean, if they're on chalk plotters, yeah, you can bob and weave, but you can't see them. You know what I mean? So there's ships hit ships out there. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, it's not heavy traffic like you see on the road, but there's traffic. People hit each other. It happens. You know
Should
what
be
I
a
mean?
lot more traffic.
So when you have 1,000 obstacles in the middle of it, people are gonna die. There's no doubt about it. This death sentence for crews and captains. It's gonna happen. There's no doubt about it. I mean, this is all stuff that we see firsthand. I mean, Block Island a little while ago, their power cables came to the surface. They had to blanket them down with cement blankets just to hold the things down. I mean, so now you're gonna go through some of our prime time bottom, hard bottom, and you're gonna blast through and expect that cable to stay there? Is it gonna surface? I mean, I don't know. Block Island's leaking, having windmill turbines leak right now. I mean, over the winter, I think there was only one working. So what happens then? What happens when these things become obsolete, like every other thing does in the next year? Then they can't fix it. Then what do you got? You got an eyesore. What's gonna happen when the salt water does its job on them? Like it's inevitable. It does its job on every single thing, everybody's house around here, erosion, everything. It's gonna beat it up. It's gonna rust. Look at the lighthouse. How much does it cost to restore that thing? What happens when we have thousands of those out there and they're obsolete, they're junk? Then who's gonna pay to remove all this stuff and then expect that the sea life's gonna come back once we do that? I mean, the sea life's gone once this happens. That's it. You know what I mean? Fortunately, I fish 100 miles offshore now because already this is having its effect inshore and I can't make a living like that. You know what I mean? So it's either go with the flow and diversify or just, you know, I'm better off working at McDonald's. Like, and that's the way it is. I mean, it's not going to do anybody any favors. It's a death sentence. It's a death sentence for fishermen in this harbor. It's just no good for anybody, you know? And like I said, Block Island, that thing has been, I don't know how much it costs, but they said it's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars to get that thing serviced and back up again. You know, so I think their electricity is going to be more expensive than anybody's. You know, this is all foreign companies too. Everybody's talking about money and stuff. All this money's going to different companies. I mean, I drive by these ships that everybody's talking about, you know, constantly, which you can go on marine traffic. You can see these guys all over the place. You can't even understand them when you're talking to them on the radar. I mean on the radio. You can't understand them. It's all foreign people, foreign languages. It's like, what was that? You know what I mean? You can't. So now that, you know, it's just, the whole thing's a nuisance, and it's not American people making American money. These are foreign products. They're non-recyclable. I mean, when they take them down, this stuff doesn't biodegrade. You can't recycle any of this stuff. I mean, I don't know where it's going to go because it's not going to last long. You know what I mean? So it's just not going to benefit Americans anyway to lease out our land to foreign companies and every other thing and give our money to foreign companies. There's plenty of ways of renewable energy, and I agree with that, but this isn't one of them. This is a death sentence in every direction you look. And I mean, if anybody tells you any different, it's because it doesn't fit their agenda. And that's the end of the line. I mean, it is what it is. And you try to push something down somebody's throat without the right research, we're all gonna pay for it forever. Our kids are gonna pay for it, my son's gonna pay for it. You know, I'm a generational fisherman out of Secana, you know what I mean? I doubt my kid's gonna have a future in this, you know? I enjoy it, so I mean, I hung with it, I rolled with the punches, and I've done good. But I mean, that wasn't easy, so, I mean, that's just my 2 cents on it, but what do I know?
Well,
I'm just out there for less.
that's a good segue into where I was going. The sonic testing was, I'm not cutting anybody off.
Couple of hands.
Is there another hand up there?
Sorry, hand here.
Corey, go ahead.
I just want to add to that, that I'm a third generation fisherman from Secana Point. I think we're the last privately owned commercial fishing dock down there now. And we do the trap fishing. And so we're a passive fishery. So we rely on the migratory path of fish coming up the coast. And I would be really surprised if this giant field of windmills wouldn't affect the migration. I mean, the fish have to come to us. We don't chase the fish. So I think we'd probably be done too. And I mean, my dad's side, we've been doing it since the 1940s, and my mom's side, they had trap fishermen back in the 1800s, and we're the last ones doing it. So I would hate for it to go away.
Thank you. Good.
Yeah, I just want to add, William Sullivan, I'm fishing. I grew up in Little Compton. I've been fishing here, pretty much my whole life, commercial fishing. And currently, right now, there's already a cable being laid, the South Fork Wind Farm. It's halfway to Cox's Ledge from New York. That power is going to New York. It's not coming to Rhode Island. I'm currently on phone calls trying to figure out exactly where that cable is being laid because it's going to go into May. May and June are bread and butter months for our family business. They have been for 30 years. And I'm trying to figure out, because it goes right through our fishing spot where we've been laying nets for 30 years. And we have to, give them a certain amount of distance. And when is that cable going to be laid? The impact on our on these 2 months could be huge, depending on when it goes through there. And we just essentially got to get out of their way, and I'm still on the phone with people trying to figure out the exact coordinates
I'll say something.
so that I can give them the space they need. It's really frustrating, it's disheartening, and we're not seeing anything out of this. We've been out there, fishing sustainably for, like I said, 30 years, and now we're just being pushed out of the way by the industrialization of the area that we fished and for us generations fished before us. So I just would like to say it's not coming in a certain sense. It's already here, and I really appreciate any pushback that anyone could have on this, because I'm already seeing it, and it could put me out of business in a year or two.
Bob, I'm going to read a statement, and then we can open it if I get a second on a motion.
Go ahead.
I think my biggest concerns are if they run the cables up the river and the destruction of the seabed and displacement of all sea life at the windmill site. The noise and driving of the platform poles into the seabed are certainly going to disperse any and all marine life, and the mud plumes generate are going to kill marine life ingested into their gills. It certainly is going to be a challenge to navigate in bad weather at night and in the fog because the blades come back as big blocks on the radar screen. So it's definitely a hazard to navigation. Another very big concern I have is all these windmills are going to be installed by foreign companies, and when they leave, what company is going to maintain them? After their useful life, what happens to them? Are they going to be left there as derelicts? I don't think the wind proponents understand how much oil, gas, and energy is going to be used, consumed, expended in the placement and maintenance of these windmills. I think the energy cost to install and maintain the windmills and the electricity they generate will be a wash. And what about the whales and marine mammals? The strikes that will certainly occur by supply ships to the farms. The fishermen are having to jump through some pretty onerous hoops to avoid any interaction with marine mammals, and it seems the wind farm companies are getting a pass. So from everything that I've heard tonight, I'm going to make a motion to adopt this resolution. I'd like a second.
I'll second it.
Motion is made and seconded to adopt the resolution as written. Are there any further comments? All in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for.
Thank you for everybody for coming. Appreciate it.
The next item of business is to approve minutes, first of all, for March 22nd.
Motion to approve the minutes of the town council meeting of March 22nd, 2023.
Second.
Discussion on that.
Which one was that one?
That's the first of the solicitor
I was
interview.
here for that one, okay.
It doesn't matter. You can vote whether you're here or not.
All right.
Approval of minutes, it's not, you don't need to be present if you're reading what they say.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The next is the minutes of March 23rd, which was our last council meeting.
Motion to approve March 23rd, 2023, town council meeting.
Second.
Discussion on that. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And then the minutes of March 30th, which was our second of our solicitor interview periods.
Same motion for March 30th, 2023.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next are the department head reports. We have 5 in front of us: the clerk, the assessor, the building and zoning official, the fire chief, and the town administrator.
Motion to approve all 5 unless someone wants to pull and talk.
I want to pull one. Just real quickly, it's for
Go ahead.
Heather. Heather, I just noticed it says coordinate with IT personnel for day-to-day issues. See that a few times. How many issues do you have day-to-day with your IT in the town hall?
Throughout a month's time frame, sometimes quite a few, sometimes not so many. If there's, like, for instance, last month I dealt with the modem going down twice in the town hall. Reaching out to them, reaching out to Cox to get service, getting the internet back up in the town hall.
How do you feel your response is from our vendor that's getting you on?
Excellent.
Excellent?
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion then is made. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The next is old business, the first of which is to consider possible designs for a town parking lot. We have a group of people who have gotten together to study this issue, led by the administrator, and will, I think, are ready to present a recommended parking option. Yes, sir, Mr. Smith.
Good evening, Bill Smith from Civil Engineering Concepts. We've been working closely with Tony's representatives from the school. Bob has also been part of that. We came up with several different options. Initially, it started with the land that was acquired from the Ponce property when that was sold. It's behind the Grange basketball court. That essentially is this property over here. In the development of the project, because parking is such a premium around the commons, there was some discussion about possibly using parking lot and an access for drop-offs and pickups for the school. So we've incorporated a stub that comes off of the parking lot that would come through and run along the school, and it would just be used during that the start and end of the school day, and then it would be blocked off.
John, could you use option 3, portray option 3 rather than option 1? Thank you. There you go.
So again, we looked at 3 different options. The first one provided approximately 49 spaces, single direction into the parking lot, pretty constrained. The next one was 51 spaces. That didn't have a very good route of circulation. And the third option actually provided 54 spaces, two-way traffic, much more manageable, much safer. The downfall or the downside to that is that the public work building would have to be raised in order to do the parking and the circulation in order to facilitate that. And I guess we've looked at the options. This is the best one from my engineering perspective, but there's a lot more that goes into making a decision like that than just strictly the engineering. So again, we wanted to bring it to the council, see if we could get some feedback. Taking down a building is not a minor task, and just wanted to get a sense from you folks what your thoughts were.
Isn't that building in kind of tough shape down there? I know the maintenance guys were always telling me the roof was going to go on it. Is that?
That is correct. We have not done much maintenance at all there with the anticipation, we're waiting, an answer as to how we were going to proceed.
So, I'm not sure the town wants to spend $100,000 to repair that building.
No, actually, we have in the capital plan the erection of a replacement facility at the transfer station.
Correct.
Which will accommodate far more than what that building does. Specifically, it'll get our vehicles out of the weather instead of parking them outside. It further can protect salt piles, things like that. The other advantage to this process, or this particular option, is that it gives us the maximum number of spaces, and to Bill Smith's point, gives us the opportunity to bring a circulation that occurs at the beginning and end of day, so that children who are driven to school are left off at the door of the school, i.e. the cafeteria, and are picked up there as well, rather than what we'd have now. That would permit our bus service to go down into the loop and conduct bus service without interacting with the pickup of children by parents bringing them. Finally, it allows us the ability during significant events in town to put a whole lot of cars that would otherwise be on the commons into this parking lot, and as a result, accomplish the objective of the owner of the cornfield, who graciously added this as a donation to the town for this specific purpose, so that we could do just that, not only gain parking, but also move it off the commons. So it seems to have several positive aspects to it.
What's the timeline looking like? If we're going with this design, we can't move forward until we get rid of the DPW building, but you can't get rid of the DPW building until we have a replacement for.
have a replacement.
So
Right. So to the timetable, what we're looking at is to build the building that we need at the transfer station this year, by December of this year, and and work through. We have some logistics to work through, obviously. We have to decide if we level the building or not. That's one. Two, working with the school department, because we may be able to, we should be able to capitalize on some housing aid from the Department of Education, which could be about 40%. And that being the case, then we could level those funds for road improvements. So there is some work that needs to be done here. Plus, we got to consider the time of the school. You can't do any work during the school year. It has to be done during the summertime. So we'll be looking at the summer of next year.
Bill, the egress on the west side, does that spill out? Does that come out?
Right there.
Does that come out?
That will be blended into the existing
Or
asphalt.
is it gonna come out of there?
Well, it's gonna tie right in here and it's gonna go all the way
Yeah,
out.
so I don't agree with that. I mean, you've got kids on the basketball court playing, and I think that's unrealistic. That's gonna come out?
Chained off during the normal part of the day.
I mean, any day. Kids are out there at night. We have lights on that court. I mean,
It's really just for the pickup and the drop off. And then after that, then it gets.
So
the traffic would normally go in this parking lot and come back
okay.
in and out. But
One is not free
So
to
you're only-
use that parking lot on that
It
path.
may take 3 times for me, but so you're only gonna use that for when school's in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to put a big chain on
it'll
it.
be secure.
It's chain, right.
Actually, I think the intention is a more permanent structure.
Gate.
If I may, so yeah, part of the intention on the school department, excuse me, side of things, is to address on the area, that new piece of blacktop that would connect to our existing blacktop on the side of the building, as well as below where it connects to the commons, would be to replace what is just a regular steel chain on a couple poles stuck into the ground, with some highly reinforced either bollards or a security gate. Those would be electronic gates, so for emergency services, they would open automatically. But otherwise, they would open to allow traffic through during pickup and drop off. Otherwise, during the day, they would shut to prevent access over there, and would actually secure that area behind the school that you referenced where the kids do play. It would actually secure it better than our existing solution right now.
I feel better.
So, I mean, I've lived with the old fire station, I went to school here, so obviously. So I hate to see these old buildings go, but is there going to be is that considered a historical building? You might, no?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, for all purpose, go ahead.
No.
For all purpose, I have not done that piece of homework. I've asked around for a couple people, but I never gotten a solid answer on that.
I've asked, it is historic. That's what I was told.
Mhm.
So that might be another problem. If it's a historic building, you got to go to the Historic Preservation Society.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you have a historic district?
I think isn't it, you have an historic expert. She's just not here right now.
Established historic district, I mean, legally established historic district.
Commons is registered as a historic district, from what I understand.
It's not a state established historic district.
Right.
Established historic district.
Okay. Is the building plaqued?
Is it what?
Is it plaqued? Is it a plaqued building?
No, I don't
No,
think so.
no,
Okay.
no, it's not.
I mean, I became a volunteer firefighter in that building. That's where it all goes back. And the building's been there. And the building's been a maintenance nightmare for however long it's been there. With the roof, the toilet backing up.
There's been several issues, and we just have not put a whole lot of money into it. We're awaiting, a decision as to how we're going to proceed. But certainly, if we're talking about it to restore it, you're talking about, at least a good $150,000 to $200,000.
We have public comment.
Yes.
I wanted to ask a question. Along with what Pat was saying about the mornings, the middle school kids are always on the basketball court. So is the school gonna have to find a different place for them in the morning to be, because they play on the basketball court, they hang out there. But with cars going back and forth in front of it, that seems like a safety issue. So is there going to be a different place for the middle school kids to go?
There's no.
I think there has been some discussion of that. I don't know if anything's been finalized. A lot of that is pending what the actual plans work out to be. I think the general view is that moving kids away from the buses and having them darting in and out of that is a greater safety problem to solve. So if anything, I would imagine there would be a lot more staffing on that side of the building to monitor the situation. And maybe we would move some of that morning drop-off activity. But I can't say for sure that any of that, it would be highly dependent on how this plan plays out, whether or not that becomes the reality.
Well, if that became an issue, you could, it's two-way traffic there, you just block that entrance off. If it became a safety hazard for the kids down there, you just block it off and you keep your two-way traffic going
Good
there.
question, Natalie, yeah. I know the school likes to have the kids in there because it's contained.
Yeah.
And that's a great spot for them.
I know that was also another major benefit of this option. Removing the maintenance building gives us the ability to have two-way traffic here, where I don't believe any of the other plans allowed for that. It would be adding another road on another part of the commons. So you now have two entrances with cars moving in and out.
I would entertain a motion that we tentatively approve option 3 with the contingencies that a report be received from the school concerning safety issues potentially associated with a new traffic pattern, and input be received from the Historical Society with respect to any comment they might have as to the nature of that building and its impact in the commons.
Specifically the basketball court.
You get all that, Heather?
Most.
Heather, can you make sure you have the basketball court? That's the issue that I have.
Second.
The safety of the basketball court, the kids in it.
Motion's made and
The
seconded.
motion is made and seconded. Is there discussion on that?
Can we read?
That the basketball court is part of the school's discussion.
Yeah, you want to read it back?
Understood.
You want me to
Make
read?
sure it's in there.
Gary, I'm sorry, Paul, and then Andrew, and then contingent report from the school on the new traffic pattern, as well as the historical impact on the DPW building, along with the safety of the basketball court.
The traffic concerns on the basketball court. Thank you.
As well.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Bill, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill. The next item of old business is to consider a memorandum of understanding from RIPTA to purchase a town van. Mr. Administrator.
As you approved initially, a letter of interest, the follow-up was obviously to visit with RIPTA and for them to show the vans that would be available. They have the 10-2, 14-2, when I'm saying 10-2 means 2 handicapped and 10 regular passengers. And they obviously would kick in 80% expense, the town would pick up 20%. That would be the agreement if we go forward. For a 10-2, which would be the most applicable for us here in Little Compton, that's it is $118,000 with $600 for backup cameras and also an additional $2,000 to do the laddering on the bus, so it comes complete. So you're looking at $120,600 for a total cost.
And RIPTA is going to put in 100,000?
They put 80%, whatever the 80% is of the total cost.
And if we sell the old one, it seems like this may not cost the town anything for.
It costs very little.
Very little.
Because that's correct. And this van would not be available for at least 16 months from now.
And what are you looking for? Motion to go?
I'm looking for a motion to go forward to sign the MOU.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded. I would also point out that the MOU has been reviewed and agreed to by the town solicitor. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The next item of business is to change the date of this year's financial town meeting from 7 PM on Tuesday, May 16th, to 7 PM on Wednesday, May 24th. That would be 8 days later.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Discussion on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The next is new business 3, which is a letter of request from John Almeida, 451 West Main Road for tax penalty relief. Does Mr. Almeida happen to be with us this evening? Okay.
Is the tax assessor here?
No, this is a matter of forgiving interest on tax payments.
Well, it looked like you wanted the interest and the penalties relieved.
That's the request. Maybe, if you would, I'll ask the solicitor who's reviewed this to give us his input.
Unfortunately, you don't have the ability to forgive either the principal or the interest on delinquent taxes. There is a state law, section 44-5-8.1, that would allow a waiver of the late interest payments up to $500. But it requires any town that does so to enact an ordinance to do that. I reviewed your town code today. You don't have such an ordinance. So tonight, unfortunately, you don't have the authority under state law to act on this request.
So the question is there appetite in the interest of those who are afflicted in this way? Ought we to make provision via a town ordinance, and if so, do you wish to proceed with the crafting of that ordinance?
I mean, I think that this gentleman gives us a pretty compelling request. I think it's worth considering that we go forward with crafting an ordinance.
How do we, when we abate taxes, we abate it because it was an error?
That's correct, yes.
State law gives the authority to abate, it's an error?
Yes. Either the assessment was incorrect, or the property is no longer owned, things of that nature.
I know this gentleman's had some hard times, but, we had $600,000 or $700,000 of delinquent taxes that was owed the town.
Close to $1 million, I think.
And it was, some of those people were 5 or 6 years late. So every year they figured if I don't pay it this year, I don't pay it next year. So they got way behind on it. It's not fair to the rest of us that have big taxes in town when we pay ours on town. I feel for this guy. Maybe we'd give him some kind of relief if we do an ordinance, but also it's not fair to the other people that have been delinquent and they've paid up to come current, and it's not fair to the general public that pays on time. So I think, we should draft something, but it's got to be some kind of requirements like this gentleman has here, but obviously we can't do anything right now, so, would the solicitor be willing to help us draft something up?
Yes.
So I'll make a motion that we go forward with drafting up a resolution to deal with an ordinance to deal with these situations, so it'll give us a little bit of leeway, but, he wants us to relieve him for $7,000. So, I think that's a bit
To
much.
be clear, his last sentence, not been easy for me, and whatever you save me in taxes, I hope to honor.
Right.
So I think that we have someone, at least at this point, asking, is there anything that can be done for me?
Well, I was a big proponent of saying when these people got behind like that, come and say something to us and let us know that you got a problem. Maybe we could do something. So if we craft an ordinance, then we'll be able to help them. How much we will be able to help them, I'm not sure, but.
Well, it'll be contingent
Right.
upon how we phrase it, right?
Sure.
Well, it's limited by state law to $500.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Well, $500. Can I get a
Your
second?
motion-
I'll second what Gary moved. I just have another question. What about going forward? This is going to keep compounding.
Yes.
There's no way to stop that. There's no way to say, hey, all right, you've made a good faith effort, you've come forward, we can work with you, but there's no way to stop the interest and penalties.
Yeah, this situation is governed by state law, Title 44, Chapter 4, and it's a very strict statute. So unfortunately, the answer is no.
Tony, there's no discretion for the tax assessor or the financial, there's no discretion for the tax assessor for this? You have no discretion, zero?
Yes.
In the absence of an ordinance.
Correct. You can have an ordinance and you can work on it from there. And I've quoted you the bare minimum of that statute. But I'll propose an ordinance to you to see how this issue can be addressed.
Do you know whether or not that $500 outlined is like a per year allowance, or you get that $500 in your lifetime and that's it? Or
if you're delinquent the next year, then you can apply again under that statute if you have the ordinance as the statute's drafted.
So depending on what we draft, we could forgive up to $500 per year of taxes, dude?
Not taxes, but the penalty. Essentially, the late payment, which is interest. The principal can't be touched, ever.
Okay. It's tied to our authority to tax in the first place, I imagine.
It's granted by the state.
Right.
So.
The motion, go ahead.
Well, no, so if he can't swing it, then what happens? It goes to tax sale, it goes to, we tax his estate, saying, this house gets sold, you gotta pay us all back, we owe you the money. Because I don't wanna kick some older gentleman out of his house because he can't pay his taxes. And from reading his letter, I mean, I think the guy's sincere, but we all have problems. But there's gotta be a mechanism that you can put in place to keep the guy in his house, and then unfortunately it becomes the heir's problem.
The collection mechanism is a tax sale, but a tax sale is not automatic. It is discretionary in your tax collector. Now, some communities have tax sales every year, no matter what. Other communities don't do that. So ultimately, it's with the discretion of the tax collector as to whether or not to put a delinquent taxpayer, their property, on for a tax sale. So that's the answer to your question. Does it keep accruing? Yes. The tax sale is discretionary. If they don't pay and then it's the heirs, you've got the tax bill that has to be paid. It keeps accruing.
Right. All right, made and seconded, Boss.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The next item is a recommendation from Larry Anderson that the town council consider scheduling a special town meeting on the same evening as the annual financial town meeting for the purpose of authorizing the town's solar project and appropriating necessary funding. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. I'm going to stick with my comments here so I don't forget what I came here to talk about. So I've attempted to follow the progress of this proposed solar project since it was proposed by my neighbor Jim Block last fall, and I have talked to him from time to time about this. I was prompted to offer this proposal for a special town meeting and the draft language when I realized that that neither the council nor the school committee had proposed a specific warrant article for this year's annual financial town meeting to seek voter approval for this potentially substantial project and to appropriate funds for its implementation on whatever scope or scale. The fact that there is no warrant article is entirely understandable in light of, one, the relatively rapid speed at which the proposal took shape, the many moving parts encompassed by the proposal, and still unresolved legal, financial, and operational issues about the project's cost and feasibility. At the same time, it appears, at least to me, that the proposal may have considerable merit for the town and the taxpayers, both financially and environmentally over time. And that, from what I gather from various conversations and documents, that this year presents the possibility of some town funds, different grants and incentives that may or may not be available, at least on the same scale, in years ahead. So, so I offer this so that the town keeps open its options and opportunity to implement elements of the proposal expeditiously if some of these outstanding questions and issues can be resolved relatively soon, as seems possible. I also have to say personally that I've worn a lot of different hats. I've been town moderator, I've been on the council with some of you, I've been on the budget committee, I've been on charter commissions, and for me, I do take seriously the principle that the voters should have a say about the appropriation of funds, especially on fairly substantial projects. So that's something I feel strongly about. And I know that there may be other arguments that this could be done by some other means, but I am partly asserting my sense that this is the nature of this project really should go before the voters in some form. So that I want to say that. So as Bob mentioned, my proposal is pretty straightforward. Is to hold a special town meeting to coincide with the annual town meeting. We've done that from time to time before when something has come up that needed to be cleaned up from the prior fiscal year or so forth. So it's not unprecedented. I provided the information, as you know, that it's fairly simple. It's a short time frame. If you would choose to adopt this plan, it would probably have time enough to get a page into the budget committee report so that voters would get notice at the same time as they get their regular budget report. So I present this as sort of a placeholder project. That is, you could do it. The mechanics of it are not complicated. If we get to town meeting and the pieces haven't come together, we table it. If it gets to town meeting, what I presented, and I'm certainly not wedded to it, and the town solicitor may have other thoughts about it, but I've tried to draft a very comprehensive article that keeps all the options open, with the idea that when you get to the town meeting, depending on what you might have agreed on, that proposal could be amended, both as to the scope of the project and to the sources of funding. So I was trying to be as comprehensive as I could be without tying anyone's hands, but also transparent, actually identifying possible sources of funding. There may be others that I haven't considered. Again, there are almost 2 months between now and the town meeting to try to work out some of the specifics. I'm especially concerned, and I've heard different opinions, and the town solicitor would definitely want to be looking at it, is that we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot with regard to the Warren solar credit plan that you've already agreed to. That's a pretty complicated document, and I think that's one of the big questions that has to be worked out, is we want to be able to take advantage of whatever benefits may exist there, especially if there are benefits that can be transferred to nonprofits, but we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot by inadvertently going too fast. So, and my hope also is that the time available gives the town council, the school department, budget committee, town administrator, the solicitor, others to get on the, see if everybody's on the same page. And finally, I think it's both legally appropriate and politically important to seek voter approval for this initiative, which again, I think has many potential benefits. I just want to point, I made one mistake in my proposal.
Oh, for goodness sake.
I can't believe that either.
Well, I wanted to say it before one of you guys jumped on it. But when I drafted this originally, I included all the projects, and I was going to plug in and I was relying on this number that I got from one of Mr. Locke's previous spreadsheets about the gross cost and the net cost. So I originally drafted this with all three proposed buildings, the school, the town hall, and the police fire in mind. My sense in talking to people was that for a variety of reasons, there was some sentiment that maybe the thing to do was to deal with the school for a variety of reasons, including the potential of additional aid that the school could get that would reduce the net cost to the town for that portion of it. So in the note after my article, I had said, while the total estimated cost of installing voltaic on the 3 town-owned buildings is approximately $513,000, that's wrong. I changed it to the school alone in the article. I neglected to just specify the school in this, and that's where the 513 gross cost is the projected school amount from that Newport renewables quote. So that should say the total estimated cost of installing photovoltaic panels on the school, not on the 3 town-owned buildings. So that was a little confusing. So that's my proposal. You have read the article and my proposal, so that's just my thought, that this is a fairly simple way and transparent way to bring this before the voters. And I think legally going forward that it's important to have the record of the town meeting vote for expenditure of funds, so that there may be other ways that I know have been discussed that this could be done with existing funds, perhaps without town meeting vote, but especially with regard to that Warren contract, it might be important to have a vote that says that the town and school committee are both involved in the project.
Well put. I think that's both of those matters are very important. The fact that we're talking about doing basically phase 1, which is the school, and we're talking about doing it in a way that doesn't jeopardize the savings we get from our other investment, while at the same time potentially offering nonprofits in the town the opportunity to participate so as to, I'll say, use up some of that portion that is allotted to this particular project. So,
See, Mr. Locke, he's tried to explain this to me several times. So I know it's a fairly complicated thing, and the town solicitor is definitely going to have to help everybody, and the school committee's lawyer, to make sure everybody's on the same page with that.
I think I can explain it to the lay person. I'm gonna make a motion for your request, though. If you want me to do that first, Bob.
I'm sorry, your last.
I'm happy to make a motion
Please.
to the town council to schedule a special town meeting.
Second.
The motion is made and seconded to schedule a special town meeting in advance of the annual financial town meeting for the purpose of dealing with this solar energy issue.
Just quickly, under discussion, real quickly, 4th grade math for everybody. So it costs $500,000 to put panels on the school. I forget the 13,000 you threw in there. So 500,000, you get 30% federal credit from the Green Energy Infrastructure account. Jim, you can check me on this. So that's That's $150,000, brings the cost down to $350,000. This is the school does it. The state's going to give $75,000 from the Department of Energy. So $75,000 less than $350 is $275,000. The school, from its housing aid from RIDE, is 40%. So 40% of the 275 is 110,000. So the net cost for the school is $165,000. So you brought up the Warren solar plan. There's 3 issues that I think that we have to do. We have to get engineering on the school, on the building roofs. We have just a cursory look at it, from my opinion. I think you need engineering on that to make sure that you're going to get, the roof can take the panels. I think that's important. The second thing, Newport's done this project, from what I understand. I could be wrong. The St. George's School is also, it has solar panels. They're Episcopal churches, whether they're non, whatever you just said, doing it. I think Little Compton needs to get those agreements and contracts and see how that worked out. Third, we need a clear answer on how to manage the excess of credits. That's the big deal. If we get too many credits, what do we do with them? So we need to manage them. And this Warren agreement that we're in, solicitor obviously needs to look at it and see what we can do with those credits. So that's how I understand it. So you can correct me if I'm wrong.
That's really an excellent.
It is excellent.
It is excellent. All of us are shocked.
I got another one.
This is a new one.
It's a new one.
The reason, and I brought extras for anybody in the audience who want to look at them.
But men, unfortunately, we found 2 of them.
The absence
of seeing what the finances are. It's a little bit hard to figure out how to handle this. But this is what it would actually look like.
I have mine. I have mine.
No, yours, you don't, you have the old.
Oh,
You're gonna need that one for
No,
reference.
no.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to take much time here, but if you look at it, the school, if we do the school first and we manage to transfer roughly 80 megawatt hours, so the town uses 540 megawatt hours a year. If we can transfer 80 of those megawatt hours a year in one, and there's at least 3 different ways to do that, to nonprofits in the library, the community center, the wellness center, maybe the churches. The town will wind up spending roughly $130,000 at the end of the day, and will save $43,000 a year every year for the next 25 years. So they'll pay off the 125 in 3 years. And from then on out, and that's because of the subsidies that we just heard about so eloquently. And how long, now, by the way, there is some time constraints here, and the Warren contract is probably less important, actually, than the energy company, because they're going to wind up having to have a say in this. But we can't get money from the Department of Education until it passes an engineering inspection. So there's actually quite a few steps that we need to get to. And I'm really grateful for Larry's efforts to put this, to give ourselves a shot for the next 2 months to solve these different projects. But the amount of money involved is substantial. And given all the other things we worry about when we're trying to save the planet, this is the one way which, is probably the least harmful to our precious environment.
You're here.
I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
I think it doesn't hurt to schedule a special financial town meeting on the same night as financial town meeting. Saves us money and the advertising for town meeting, and if we were to do a special financial town meeting at a different point next year, so we might as well just do it. It doesn't lock us into anything.
And if we're not done by then, you can blame me.
Just, the motion is for this to be in advance of the regular town meeting.
Yes, that's how we've done, in 2018 and 2017, we did a similar thing, 15 minutes ahead. Actually, at 7, we scheduled it, and then the annual financial town meeting was to convene at 7:15 or whenever the other was completed.
Because that's my fear, is getting the quorum.
No, that's the advantage of it. We strive to only have to achieve 1 quorum per year, and this is
Well, so it's gonna, basically, it's gonna start at the regular meeting time.
Yes.
And then the regular, yeah, okay, that's what I was
that's
worried about.
the intention.
And if I may interject, that the logistics of the town meeting itself, of course, will be then managed by the moderator.
Right.
And, I was thinking about this, I mean, it should be pretty straightforward, but there will be some, I will just speak in my opinion as a former moderator, that procedurally, you would have some discretion to recess the special town meeting, act in the other meeting, reconvene it. There are things that he has a lot of authority to do in the course of the meeting to facilitate a decision that night. So that would be up to him, not the rest of us, not to the council.
Right. We would lay it out in an agenda, but it would be under his purview.
Will we need to send this warrant to the budget committee for recommendation, or?
We have done that in the past, and I would imagine that would be a smart thing for us to do. It ought to be.
I know the budget committee, I sent it to the chair to present to the committee. I haven't appeared before them, but they're aware of it. I sent a copy of this. They can weigh in.
Do we want to amend the motion to accept the article as written here and schedule a special financial town meeting in addition to sending this to the budget committee? with our acceptance,
Can I interject with that? You might want to,
or do it separately?
I made a stab at it. You might want to have a condition that subject to review by the solicitor.
Right.
Okay, all right.
That's what I think we want to do.
I think I made the motion. I'm happy to withdraw my motion.
Did you make a new motion?
No, somebody can do it.
I'll move that we have a special financial town meeting before our regular financial town meeting for the purpose of approving finances to put solar on the school, and have the solicitor look at it, come back with a draft to give to the budget committee so it can be included in the warrant.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to proceed, and do you have that, Madam Clerk?
Special meeting before the financial town meeting for the purpose of approving finances to put solar on the school with having the solicitor input.
Review of the proposed language.
Last thing, do we need to make a motion to have the solicitor review the Warren Solar agreement? Or can we just direct him to do that? Or can you just direct him to do that?
I guarantee you he needs to do that.
Yeah, we don't need to vote
He
on it,
has to
right?
look at that, and he's also going to have to look at whatever the solution that Newport comes up with.
Right, and also look at, Newport's done this, or if I'm not mistaken, or they're doing it now?
They've done it before. I'm not sure they've done it exactly like this.
So whatever we can glean from them is only going to help us in our process.
And they've offered to meet with us sometime relatively soon. And they've actually recommended apparently a very high-powered lawyer who deals with nothing but the electricity in the state.
I would hope, can we direct the attorney to do that, to meet?
Yeah, I'd appreciate it if it was an emotion. I can tell you that another client, the town of Lincoln, is doing something similar with a physical education complex that they're doing right now. Same type of subsidies that you guys are getting. So please, I'd like to review it, and I'd like to see what Newport's doing also.
I can make that motion after this one's voted on.
Want to vote on this motion?
Yeah. All in favor of the motion before us?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'd like to make a motion, direct the town solicitor to review our Warren Solar project and to get into discussions with Newport on a similar project that they've done.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your work on this. The next item of business is to consider possible recommendations for farm labor housing from the planning board. Let me say that I put this item on the agenda as a result of a conversation between myself and the chair of the planning board, who is here, with the idea that it would not be admissible as specifics, but rather as the tone of the issue. Maybe I'd ask that Mr. Steers give us a sense of what the planning board was thinking about, heard from farmers about, and then chose to codify or to put into a form that is at least.
Thank you. Yes. The Ag Trust had a luncheon that a number of you were at a couple of Saturdays ago and got feedback from 60-plus local farmers as to what their needs were. So Skip and Ben are here tonight. They were at the planning board meeting on Tuesday evening, and we had received their input that farm labor and is one of the biggest challenges that they have in housing the labor and being able to get them to town. So prior to Tuesday's meeting, the planning board took a stab at accessory uses to customary home occupations, which was an ordinance we have that's standing now, and then sort of added to that, saying that agriculture was a critical seasonal home occupation in town. So then we discussed that at some length on Tuesday and got input, and I asked them to speak in a second, but summarizing what we sort of ended up with was that it would be nice and maybe licensing was the best way to approach this, a 3-year license. So we're talking about temporary housing, Winnebago without an engine, trailer, something that you can imagine, that it would, each one would have up to no more than 3 bedrooms, no more than 2. They would be temporary, maximum of 9 months of use. They would be part of the workers' compensation. So they're not paying rent. There's nothing to do with short-term rentals or anything like that. The building official would have to inspect them at the beginning of the season, end of the season. They'd have to pass the requirements for potable water and some form of sewage, whether it's a holding tank or a system that's available to use. It's an accessory to the principal building on the property, so it's part of the farm. Question of screening and setbacks relative to concern of abutting neighbors and where it is and how you deal with that. And then probably one of the biggest challenges was defining what a farmer, and one of the suggestions was dealing with gross revenue to qualify, to establish what the farm is. I know we have some definitions in our solar ordinance with regard to defining a farmer. So that's my summary. I'd ask Ben or Skip to see if I got it correctly. What we're after is Ben Ferraria was there and took notes, and so if you're in support of the idea, then we need a draft amendment to a zoning ordinance or a new zoning ordinance in that accessory use section. And we'd ask that the council endorse having that done, if you agree with the concept, to present something for public hearing and further consideration.
Are these going to be permanent? Are they going to be there? So they're going to be there for 9 months and then they're going to?
Not necessarily. They can't be used for more than 9 months. So the other states have this sort of thing, and whether they're covered or somehow they're shut down, so and inspected at the end of the 9 months by the building official. One of the things is start up and shut down by the building official, but they're not to be a permanent structure. I think we came up with 3 years as a period that makes the investment of the farmer worthwhile. So anyway.
So I was at that meeting and I heard those comments that everybody's having problems with health. Fishermen are having horrible problems with health. Same thing. People have to drive, and a lot of these people don't have cars, so it's a problem. I think the farm guys are more labor intensive for what they have to do with the farming. So, I mean, if we all agree on this, I'll make the motion to allow the planning board to draft an ordinance for us to look at.
I'd ask Tony's office to draft the ordinance. We happy to.
I just have some questions.
Wait, Tony, you're getting it tonight.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to ask Skip and Ben if I got it right, and so that you're considering what they need.
I think it's great. I mean, this is not just popped up in the last 3 years, but it's been exacerbated by the COVID time period, and the after COVID, they realized the value of property in town. Just trying to even find a rental, let alone trying to buy a small house to house farm workers, just disappeared. So this is happening in Amherst, Massachusetts. A lot of concentrated Massachusetts areas of agriculture. They're exploring the same problem because this is ubiquitous. This goes all the way up to the top of Maine down to Connecticut too. So I think it's an idea whose time has come, and I think it's a great solution. Take 3 years to try it out. If it doesn't work or if something's not there, it can all go away too. That's part about it. We at least need 3 years to make the investment in these temporary housing vehicles. And, we also are looking to have a little bit of a broader perspective as where it's located on the farm. My farm is 13 acres, so being able to put it on the farm and not be, have it be inconspicuous is easy, but Ben here has a much smaller house lot where his farm is, so we may have to make some exceptions. But, again, these things are just for the 9 months when farming is really intense. During the other times of the year when it's not used, I think it's another area. But, if any other questions, if Ben wants to say something.
Yeah, when I went to the meeting that has been referred to, we were sort of asked what the trouble spots for farms are, and deer, water, and labor were my 3 go-to points, and I didn't even get to speak because people were falling over themselves to talk about housing shortage and really not being able to find good labor. And in the 12 years I've been farming in Little Compton, I used to have a lot of people applying for jobs, and driving in from Providence, and gas prices just shot up, and traffic on 195 is getting worse and worse. So my bright-eyed workers are not that excited about coming to Little Compton anymore. And it also, adding a commute to a really long, laborious day just kind of is not working. So we're hoping to find creative ways to get us the labor we need. And so it would be a real game changer on my farm. And so the hope is that we can find a way to make sure that this is for working farms and it's not taken advantage of in any other way. So we still have a lot of discussion and definitions and things like that. Every farm's footprint is different, so setbacks and things like that are going to be hard to get right for everybody. But the concept is really attractive to folks as farmers.
Thanks. If I could.
Excuse me. Would there be consideration for farms that work are 24/7, 365 days a year? Like, would they do a consideration for a full year instead of 9 months? Or would that be like something to add to the table? Because like some farms.
It's year round.
And animals.
No, and ranching is year round. I think that, yes, animal ranching as well as farming. So it's just a question of defining it. I think that.
Yeah, I mean.
It's defining the farm.
Right. So maybe they could do a little longer.
Yep.
So I have this working document. I was at the Ag Trust meeting. This wasn't in our packet. I don't think anyone else has it. But I agree with Gary that, other people are hurting too, landscapers, fishermen, long-term people that have farms. I like the idea of this idea, though. I like the idea of the idea. So your working document, and I know it's a working document, it's not, in stone here, but it says it could be 2 FLHs on a farm. Am I right in reading that?
Correct.
Commercial farm?
Two dwellings, 3 bedrooms each, total of 6.
Right.
This is just.
It's just a working document. I understand.
Very, very working
document.
But also, we wanted to, not to, we were interested in animal farming as well, or ranching, or however what the term is that's not seasonal, or it's year round. But we didn't want to, we wanted to solve a problem and then be able to grow the solution to other needs rather than not be able to help them out. And so address one, expanded, I agree completely from a dairy standpoint, but.
All right, so it also says in your working document, this seasonal farm labor housing must be set back 100 feet from abutting properties. Just want to run through it quick. That's what you're, what I really care about is the last thing that you have on here, that it says seasonal farm labor housing means temporary and structures occupied by farm employees and their family members, including spouses, domestic partners, children, and dependent adult family members who are employed at least 51% of the growing season on the commercial farm. So in 9 months, we're going to tell this family, beat it.
No.
What are we going to tell them? I mean, these people, we have a very welcome community, as you know, and these people are going to come in for 9 months. They're going to make friends. They're going to go to our restaurant. We have a restaurant, yeah, and they're going to go to our beach, you know, and they're going to be part of our community. They make friends. They might even go to our schools. Their kids, and in 9 months, what happens to them?
This solution is not trying to solve everything. This was initially directed based on the needs we heard.
I like the idea.
I'm not suggesting that it starts out with an accessory dwelling to the principal dwelling. The principal dwelling is the farmhouse. This is accessory to that to support the farming activity, whether it's cattle or broccoli, right? So it's that is a collection of a whole lot of input from multiple places. And we weren't trying to set up a parallel housing situation that where the biggest obstacle would be, what do we do, with nurturing the family and whatnot. This is
Go ahead, Skip.
our first objective.
I think the way I understood it, we were trying not to bring in a family, but I've worked with it, quite often in farming. People come up from Mexico to pick strawberries in California. These people are a single person, whether male or female, it's going to make income, something they like doing, then they'll go home. I don't really foresee bringing in a family. They'll take, whatever. But it's workers. It's not really to bring in a family that all of a sudden in 9 months, that family has to go wherever we're going to be. Even though we're going to go back to the place where he does have a family. So I'm considering mostly just farming for 9 months to get people to help the farm.
So I never got my fingers dirty doing anything, so I haven't planted anything, so I'm not a farmer. So this gentleman's gonna come in, he's gonna work for 9 months, and then he's gonna leave to go back to where?
Wherever he wants.
Or this woman, man or woman, whoever.
Yeah.
And that would be attractive.
That's common in farming.
That would be attractive to a farmer.
It could be Providence, Fall River, Boston, some part of Massachusetts or Rhode Island.
And he would be here alone.
Well,
Away from his family.
I envision people working for 5 days and then taking 2 days off, driving home to wherever they want to go. I'm not going to get some guy from California come and work in my Winnebago, Compton. Sure. There'll be people that's just too far to drive. Maybe if they're coming from Hartford, Connecticut.
I understand your concept that you just want workers to come in and live in those facilities. I think you've start going family routines. I think that's too much. They're gonna be a burden on the farm more than anything.
Yeah.
So I made a motion. Can you run with that motion?
I can, and if I can just comment on what you're talking about. Once the policy considerations are all set, we're going to be able to draft whatever you want and put it in your zoning ordinance. We've already started. Now, it may be that you want to bifurcate things and have different classes of these types of housing for different farms and their needs. We'll be able to do that, and we'll be able to have the town make those determinations for the proper thing. We can do it. All we need to know is what you need, and it can be drafted. And I think what we're going to need to have to do here is not just at the council level, but it seems to me that when we're doing the drafting, we're going to have to consult with your farmers on this to make sure that what we're doing is what they need. Then we can bring it back here with the language. You can make the policy consideration. I think this is going to have to go in the zoning ordinance. So it'll start here, go to the planning board for their recommendation as to whether or not it complies with the comprehensive plan. Then you can have a public hearing. So it'll be a fairly robust process. We'd like to start off by talking to you all if we can. Mike, if you could get contact information, And we'll come up with broad language to hit all of these categories, so at least you have a choice for what you have to do.
So
We'd like to get going on it.
Why don't you work with Mike? Mike will get you the information for the farmers and give you the policy, what they want in it, and then we'll come back for hearings and whatever we need on the council end.
Absolutely. Mike's going to get sick of us.
I doubt that.
Not him.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the
I made the motion, we still got to vote on it.
Second.
discussion on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks for bringing this forward, and thank you for causing us to listen. Sitting as the Board of License Commissioners, we have two matters before us. One is a request from the Little Compton Game Club for a Class F1 one-day retail beverage license.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The second is a request for a Class BV license from Dionysus Acquisition, doing business as Carolyn Sakonnet Vineyard. This item, the solicitor and I have talked at some length on, and our first issue, I think, is that we need to properly advertise a BV license intention and then proceed to a public hearing on that matter.
That's correct. Under section 3-5-17 of the general laws, a BV license can't be granted until after a public hearing that's properly noticed, and I believe it's two weekly notices. Three weeks.
Motion, well, what's the motion you want then, to go to
Advertise.
advertise?
Advertise the application of an entity for a Class BV license, which we have one that
We
is
have-
not spoken.
We have one that's not spoken. All right, I'll move
You have to
that.
set the date, the public hearing too.
I'll amend my motion to set a date for the public hearing. Do we want to do that on its own time frame, or do we want to do that before a
I
regular
think
meeting?
you'd pick.
If you have to be,
It can be in a regular meeting.
yeah, it has to be.
It'd be this first meeting of May is the
Right.
earliest. it would
Correct.
be.
Yes.
It'll be 4 weeks.
All right, so I'll amend my motion to include a public hearing on the first meeting of May. That works?
Yes. Is there a second? Second.
So under discussion, is the solicitor privy to this Sakonnet Vineyard Odyssey that's been going on for years here?
I am familiar, yes.
How familiar are you?
Well, I could be more familiar, but I actually had some experience with this because the LCALC asked me to represent them in the beginning stages when this first issue with the concerts came up.
Will you give us your opinion on this after you review it so the town council can be aware of how you feel about this?
I will, yes. I've already started reviewing it. And I actually have some points. I don't think it's appropriate to bring them up at this time, but I've reviewed the application. There's some more information that I'd like to see before the public hearing so that I can properly advise you.
You need a motion to give us your assessment of it?
No.
There's a motion on the table right now.
Is that a no? I'm sorry, Gary. Did you say no, solicitor?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Just for the record, this is not entailing an entertainment license. This is a BV license and a victual license. This is not anything to do with.
That's correct, yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to request that the review include the building official, because a year ago, the building official said on this same application that I think it had to do with the restaurant and that it was not a permitted use in the residential zone. So I just didn't, I wanted to make sure that got into the whole review.
That'll be part of the solicitor's review.
It is, yes. And there's some other licensing issues that need to be addressed, which I don't think are appropriate to discuss at this time.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded, sir.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Excuse me. Initially, Paul mentioned advertising, but then changed it to setting the date for the public hearing. Did you want that part in your motion?
Yes.
Advertising?
Both advertising over the next 3 weeks and then a public hearing in 4 weeks.
Thank you.
Nominally, if those. that
First
works
meeting in May,
chronologically.
I'm not sure what the date is, but
The next item of business is communication, the updated senior van weekly schedule. I am pleased to announce that we now run the senior van 5 days a week. Mondays, it takes people that wish a ride to the senior lunch at the community center. Tuesdays, it makes an eastern run. It goes to the Wellness Center, Lee's Supermarket, and the Westport Apothecary. Wednesdays, it takes seniors to the lunch at the community center. Thursdays, it makes a northern run to Market Basket, Walmart, and the Tiverton CVS. And then Fridays, it does both the Wellness Center and the senior lunch. The rides are provided without charge. The schedules are subject to change from time to time, but this is an aggressive schedule in an effort to accommodate as many of the seniors for as many things as they want to do that we can. And additional specialty trips will be added in the future. The one thing that I haven't solved yet is who will be the recipient of the phone calls that say, I'd like a ride. So that word will come out, I expect, tomorrow or perhaps Monday. Initially, that was being done at the community center when a person registered for a meal. However, that's not the only kind of ride in town. So what we're seeking, and I have a person who has expressed her willingness to be this person, to accept the phone calls and pass along the schedules. But we're anxious to serve seniors at least those 5 days a week. Any questions?
Motion placed on file.
Second.
Discussion on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. And then the draft resolution before us is one to oppose Senate Bill 434, the inspection of motor vehicles.
May I just speak on that?
Yes, please, go right ahead.
There is a bill in the Senate right now in committee that was held for further study, which means it could come back again in the coming weeks. The House bill has already passed the House. This bill would require that any vehicle inspection stations have to be within the borders of Rhode Island. Currently, the closest inspection station to the town of Little Compton is in Massachusetts at Rob's Auto Care. And this bill, the Senate bill, would strip Rob the ability to do vehicle inspections. And I think our community heavily relies on Rob's Auto to perform that duty for the community. So I drafted this resolution with one addition from the chief of police for us to consider.
Are you going to move it?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept this resolution and ask the council president to sign it and send it to the governor, the Speaker of the House, the Senate President, our state senator, and our state representative.
I'll second it.
Should this be looked over by the solicitor or you think it's okay the way it goes?
It's in proper form.
It is.
Taking a look at it, yes.
We're under discussion. Andrew, do you know who the author of the bill was that passed the House?
I don't know who I don't think it was our state representative who put in the House bill, but our state senator, Lou DePalma, has put in the Senate bill, the companion Senate.
Rob, do you know who authored the House bill?
I believe it was Edwards.
John, what's his name? John Edwards in Tiverton? Jay. I'm sorry. Jay John? Jay Edwards.
One of them.
Dave period Edwards.
Yes.
So Rob, can you quickly, what's this all about? Is there anything behind the curtain here that we need to know?
This stems because I've always provided an inspection service for customers when I was in Little Compton. Since I moved to Westport, there was a waiting list for the Rhode Island inspection license. I did not get on the waiting list for the emissions side of things. The licensing is in 3 stages. There's a light duty license that does medium duty trucks. There's a heavy duty license that does semi-sized trucks, and large trailers. There's a light emissions class license. I never pursued the emissions license because Donnie at East Repair had it. And when I was in Little Compton, I was within 1.5 miles of him. When I moved over, I did pursue it. I was further away. South Tiverton was there. There was nobody there but Smith's on the other side of town. I finally got the license. The gentleman that I used to bring all of our customers' vehicles to is upset that he doesn't have that income anymore of me running our vehicles to him. That's where this came from.
I thought it came from somewhere. I mean, it just didn't come out from the air, right?
Nope, it didn't come from the air.
Okay.
It came.
Thank you for that. We also send this to Palmer?
Yeah, that's included.
That was in the motion.
Does it include the motion? I knew that.
The motion's been made and seconded, sir.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The consent calendar, is there a motion to place that on
Yes,
file?
so moved.
Second.
Discussion on that. All in favor?
Aye.
The payment of bills,
Motion to pay the bills.
Second.
discussion.
Aye.
Having no further business before us, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, especially thank you for those of you who stuck with us through the entire meeting.